Police confused me for a suspect, the shocking truth. Imagine being targeted by the police for a crime you didn't commit with no explanation, just a sea of questions and a world of confusion. That's exactly what happened to me, and trust me, the truth is so bizarre, so unbelievable that it's going to change the way you think about justice. But here's the real question: was I framed, or was something much darker at play? Stick with me to find out, because what I'm about to reveal will blow your mind.
Hey, story lover. Welcome to the Narrative Hub, Reddit Stories. Believe me, this adventure gets wild, but it's only epic with you. Seriously, you make this possible. Want more stories? Greater adventure? Smash subscribe right now. Smash like. Comment below. Let's go.
It was a Tuesday. That's the first thing you have to understand. It wasn't a stormy Friday night or a shadowy alley in a movie. It was a mundane, forgettable Tuesday in October. The sky was that flat gray color that promised rain but couldn't be bothered to deliver. I was walking back from a local cafe, a warm cup in my hand, thinking about a project deadline and what my wife, Jennifer, wanted for dinner. Life was normal. It was a meticulously constructed fortress of normalcy, built on mortgage payments, grocery lists, and weekend plans. I was Matthew Miller, an architect. I designed buildings, structures with clear rules and solid foundations. My life was supposed to be the same, but in the next 5 minutes I would learn that foundations can crumble into dust without a sound. It started with a single siren in the distance. You know how it is in the city, you barely even register it, it's just background noise. But then the single siren became two, then three, a chorus of rising panic that was getting closer, too close. I remember pausing on the sidewalk, looking around, and that's when I saw it. The first cruiser screamed around the corner, its lights painting the gray street in frantic strokes of red and blue, then another, and another. They weren't just passing by. They were converging on me. My brain couldn't process it. My feet felt bolted to the concrete. One cruiser mounted the curb, cutting off my path. Doors flew open. Officers, plural, were emerging, hands on their holsters, their faces grim and unreadable masks of authority. You know how in a nightmare everything moves too fast, the flashing lights locking you in place, the shouting voices stalking your mind with pure panic, and the absolute barrel-chested fear when you realize the guns are pointed at you. Get on the ground now. The command wasn't a request, it was a physical force, a wall of sound that hit me in the chest. My coffee cup slipped from my numb fingers, splashing a dark stain on the pavement. I dropped to my knees, hands shooting into the air. My mind was a blank, screaming void. A mistake. This has to be a mistake. Face down, hands behind your back. Concrete is cold. It smells like dirt and old rain. I felt the pressure of a knee in my back, the cold, sharp click of handcuffs ratcheting around my wrists. The sound is something you can't forget. It's the sound of every choice being taken away from you. Voices were swirling above me, a storm of commands and radio static. We got him, suspect is in custody. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard them keep yelling a name. It was Anthony Wilson. They kept shouting it. Anthony Wilson, you are under arrest. My voice was a strangled whisper against the pavement. My name is Matthew Miller, you have the wrong guy. An officer hauled me to my feet. He was a tall man with weary eyes that had seen too much. He held up a grainy, printed photo. You want to try that again, Anthony? He sneered. And that's when my blood ran cold, because I stared into the face of the man in the photograph, the wanted fugitive, the dangerous criminal, and I was staring at myself. The same dark hair, the same jawline, the same tired lines around the eyes. It was me, but it wasn't. And in that one horrifying second, I understood exactly why this was happening and why my entire world was about to be torn apart. I wasn't just in the wrong place at the wrong time. This was something else entirely. And what I would uncover in the next few days would prove that sometimes the most terrifying monster is the one who wears your own face. The police station was a sterile cage of cinder blocks and buzzing fluorescent lights. I was put in a small, windowless room. The air was thick with the smell of stale coffee and desperation. My hands were still cuffed. The minutes stretched into an eternity. Every creak of the building, every distant shout sent a jolt of pure adrenaline through my system. My normal life, my deadline, the question of what to have for dinner, it was all on another planet. Finally, the door opened. The officer who had shown me the photo walked in. He was older, maybe late 40s, with a face that looked like it was carved from granite. He dropped a file on the metal table between us. The sound echoed in the tiny room. I'm Detective Scott Lopez, he said, his voice low and gravelly. He didn't offer a handshake. And you are going to tell me where you stashed the money from the armored car. My head was spinning. Armored car? I'm an architect. I was walking home from getting coffee. My name is Matthew Miller, my wallet, my ID, it's in my pocket. He gave a dry, humorless chuckle. Cute, Fake IDs are a dime a dozen. We've been hunting Anthony Wilson for 6 months, a string of high-stakes professional robberies. He's smart, he's clean, and he's a ghost, until today. He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto mine. This was pure cutthroat competitiveness. He wasn't just doing a job, he was hunting, and he believed he had his prey cornered. Let's go over the evidence, shall we? 2 nights ago, an armored car was hit, a guard was injured. The getaway vehicle was a dark gray sedan just like the one registered to you. We have a partial license plate from a traffic cam a block away. The first 5 digits, a perfect match to yours. My heart hammered against my ribs. That's a coincidence. There must be hundreds of cars like mine. Hundreds, he agreed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. But how many of them were spotted by an eyewitness who got a clear look at the driver, an eyewitness who just picked your face out of a photo lineup less than an hour ago? He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. She was 100% certain it was you. He wasn't done. He reached into the file and slid a small, plastic-bagged receipt across the table. It was from a 24-hour gas station 20 miles from my house near the scene of the robbery, time-stamped just 30 minutes before the 911 call came in. This, Lopez said, tapping the bag, was found in a trash can near where the getaway car was last seen. Your car, Anthony. The system flagged the purchase time and location as suspicious. It was the final nail in the coffin. I looked at the receipt, then back at his unflinching face. It felt like the walls were closing in. I had an alibi, but it was pathetic. My wife, Jennifer, was visiting her sister out of state. I was home alone, working late on a design proposal. There were no witnesses, no one to vouch for me. I was at home, I stammered, working on my computer. You can check the files, the timestamps. Detective Lopez just shook his head slowly, a look of profound disappointment on his face. You're a ghost, Anthony. You're good at covering your tracks, we know, but you made a mistake, and now it's over. He saw my denial not as the desperate plea of an innocent man but as the last predictable lie of a guilty one. To him, the case was airtight. The system had worked. It had pieced together the clues, the car, the face, the receipt, and it had all pointed directly at me. But what he couldn't possibly know was that we were both caught in the same lie. A lie so carefully constructed, it was designed to make the system devour me whole. I had to prove I was innocent. But how do you fight a ghost who has stolen your face? The next 24 hours were a blur of cold steel and colder reality. I was booked, fingerprinted, and photographed. The flash of the camera felt like a branding iron, searing the identity of Anthony Wilson onto my soul. I got my one phone call, my voice cracking as I left a frantic, terrified message for Jennifer. Then I was led to a holding cell. The heavy door slammed shut, and the sound of the bolt sliding home was the sound of my life ending. My court-appointed lawyer, a tired-looking man named Mr. Green, met with me the next morning. He listened patiently as I recounted my story, my voice hoarse with a night of sleepless panic. When I finished, he sighed, rubbing his temples. Mr. Miller, Matthew, I believe you, but you need to understand what you're up against. He began to break it down, and his words painted a terrifying picture. Eyewitness testimony, he began, is notoriously unreliable, especially in stressful situations. The witness thinks she saw you, her brain filled in the gaps with the face from the photo lineup. It's confirmation bias. The partial plate, he continued, it's circumstantial, it proves nothing on its own but when added to the pile. And the receipt, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The most damning piece because it feels tangible, he said. But there's no signature, no card used, it's a cash receipt. The police believe it connects you to the scene, and in this system, belief is a powerful form of evidence. He leaned back, his expression grim. What you're experiencing is what happens when a series of unrelated data points are woven together to tell a story. The police have their story, Anthony Wilson, master criminal, finally caught. Every piece of evidence they find now will be bent to fit that narrative. They aren't looking for the truth anymore, they're looking to confirm what they already believe. It was exactly what Hook 9 warned about, a perfect system that can trap a completely innocent person. It wasn't a conspiracy. It was worse. It was a machine functioning exactly as it was designed but fueled by flawed data. A glitch in the system that could swallow you whole and you'd never see it coming until the handcuffs clicked. Later that day, Jennifer arrived. The moment I saw her walk into the visitation room, a wave of relief so powerful it buckled my knees washed over me. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear and sleeplessness, but when she looked at me there was no doubt, just fierce, unwavering belief. "We're going to fight this, Matthew," she said, her hands pressed against the thick security glass separating us. "We're going to take this apart piece by piece." That night she bailaid me out. The cost was astronomical, draining our savings, but walking out of that station, breathing the cool night air was like being reborn. But I wasn't free. I was a suspect out on bail, a man wearing a life that wasn't his. The shadow of Anthony Wilson hung over me, and I knew that if we didn't find him, that shadow would eventually consume me. The fight for my life had just begun, and our first clue was buried in a place we never would have thought to look. The next few days were agonizing. We were prisoners in our own home, which now felt less like a sanctuary and more like the center of a spider's web. Every waking moment was spent trying to dismantle the police's case. We became detectives, fueled by caffeine and fear. We pored over my computer records, trying to find definitive proof I was home during the robbery. We found it, a digital breadcrumb, an email I had sent to a client with a large design file attached. The timestamp was 11:17 p.m., just 10 minutes before the armored car heist nearly 30 miles away. It was impossible for me to have sent that email and been at the crime scene. We rushed it to Mr. Green, triumphant. He was pleased but cautious. "This helps," he said, tempering our excitement. "It creates reasonable doubt. A good prosecutor will argue you could have used a remote access program or had an accomplice send it. It's strong, but it might not be a silver bullet." A silver bullet? That's what we needed. Something that didn't just poke holes in the police's story but blew it to smithereens. The frustration was a physical weight. How do you prove a negative? How do you prove you weren't somewhere? That night, defeated, Jennifer was aimlessly scrolling through photos on our shared cloud drive, looking for a distraction, a reminder of the life we had before it was hijacked. She was looking at pictures from a charity gala we had attended 6 months prior. Suddenly she gasped, "Matthew, get over here now." I rushed over to the laptop. She pointed a trembling finger at the screen. The photo was of us smiling, posing with some friends, but it wasn't us she was looking at, it was the background. Over my shoulder, partially obscured by a waiter holding a tray, was a man. He was looking away from the camera, talking to someone, but his profile was crystal clear. It was him. The uncanny resemblance was chilling. The same haircut, the same build, the same angle of his jaw. It was the face from the police photo, my doppelganger, living and breathing in the same room as us months before my life was torn apart. A ghost in the machine. "My word," I breathed. We stared at the image, a mixture of terror and exhilaration washing over us. This was it. This was the proof. There was another man out there who looked just like me. This wasn't a case of a mistaken eyewitness, it was a case of a literal double. We thought finding him was the answer. We thought this picture was our silver bullet, but we had no idea that we hadn't just found a clue. We had stumbled upon a breadcrumb left intentionally, a piece of a puzzle so diabolical, so personal that the mistaken identity wasn't an accident at all. We were walking straight into a trap that had been set for me months ago. The real question wasn't who he was anymore. It was why he was using my face. And the answer to that would be the most chilling discovery of all. That photograph changed everything. It shifted us from defense to offense. We weren't just trying to prove my innocence anymore, we were hunting for my ghost. We hired a private investigator, a former cop who owed my lawyer a favor. We gave him the photo. With modern facial recognition software and a bit of digital digging, it took him less than a day. He found him. His name really was Anthony Wilson. And that's when the first truly shocking twist hit us. The pie pulled his employment history 10 years ago. Anthony Wilson worked for the same architectural firm as me. Not in the same office, he was in a satellite branch in a different city that had since been shut down. I had never met him, never even heard his name. But the connection was undeniable. This wasn't a random convergence of fate, this was personal. Suddenly, the pieces started clicking into place with horrifying clarity. This wasn't a series of unfortunate coincidences, it was a meticulous, calculated frame-up. Jennifer and I spent the entire night digging deeper, cross-referencing company newsletters from a decade ago, old social media posts, anything we could find. We learned that Anthony Wilson had been fired. The official reason was listed as corporate restructuring, but we found a trail of angry veiled posts on an old forum where he complained about being stabbed in the back and passed over for a promotion he deserved. The promotion. My hands went cold, I remembered it. 10 years ago, there was a big company-wide competition for a junior partner position. It was a career-making opportunity. I had worked tirelessly on my proposal, pouring everything I had into it, and I won. That promotion was the foundation of my career. It was the moment my life took the path it was on now. And Anthony Wilson was the man I had beat. The entire diabolical plan laid itself bare. He had been nursing this grudge for a decade. He must have seen my picture in a company memo or online and realized our shocking resemblance. And he decided to use it. He decided not just to ruin my life but to steal it, to pin his own crimes on the man who he felt had stolen his future. The frame-up was brilliant in its cruelty. He hadn't just relied on our similar faces. He had studied me. The PI found security footage from a coffee shop near my office, time-stamped a month before the robberies started. There he was, sitting in a corner, watching. He would have seen my car, my clothes, my daily routine. The dark gray sedan with a partial plate match. He bought a used car of the same model and color. He likely used a stolen or altered temporary plate to mimic my numbers for the traffic cameras. The eyewitness who was 100% certain, of course she was. He was wearing a jacket just like my favorite one, had his hair cut the same way. He was performing the role of Matthew Miller. And the gas station receipt, the most damning piece of physical evidence, that was his masterpiece. He must have followed me, seen me stop for gas, and then after I left he went to the same station, bought a pack of gum for cash, and fished my receipt with its damning time stamp out of the trash by the pump. He then dropped it near the scene of his crime. It was a playbook based on a lie, but the playbook wasn't the police's, it was Anthony's. He was exploiting the system's known glitches, feeding it perfect, misleading data to ensure it would lead to only one conclusion: one person, me. We sat there in the early hours of the morning, surrounded by a decade of another man's festering hatred. He hadn't just tried to get away with a crime, he had tried to erase me and wear my life like a costume. We finally had the whole, terrifying truth. Now we had to make the police believe it. We took everything to Detective Lopez. The photo from the gala, the employment records, the social media posts from a decade ago, the theory about the receipt. I watched his face as our lawyer laid it all out. At first he was stone-faced, skeptical. It sounded like the kind of elaborate, desperate conspiracy theory a guilty man would invent. "It's a good story," Lopez said, his voice flat. "But it's just that, a story. I have an eyewitness and physical evidence." "Your evidence was planted," our lawyer shot back. "Your eyewitness was tricked. You've been played, detective." Lopez was about to dismiss us when Jennifer spoke up, her voice clear and steady. She pointed to one of Anthony Wilson's old forum posts, one where he complained about the partner he had worked for at the old firm. In it, he bitterly mentioned how his boss was obsessed with collecting rare, pre-war comic books. "The armored car robbery," Jennifer said, looking Lopez dead in the eye. "The news reports said cash and bonds were stolen, but was there anything else, anything that wasn't released to the public?" I saw a flicker in Detective Lopez's eyes, a barely perceptible shift. He stared at the screen, then at Jennifer, then back at the screen. He stood up without a word and left the room. When he came back 10 minutes later, his entire demeanor had changed. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a grim, focused intensity. "One of the security boxes in that truck belonged to a private collector," he said, his voice low. "It contained a collection of Golden Age comics, valued at over $2 million. It was the real target, the cash was just a bonus." He looked at me, and for the first time I think he truly saw me, Matthew Miller, and not the phantom of Anthony Wilson. "We've been looking at the crime all wrong." What happened next was a whirlwind. The full weight of the police department, now aimed in the right direction, was a terrifying thing to behold. They got a warrant for Anthony Wilson's address. They found him there, surrounded by his loot. The comics were there. So was a gray sedan with a box of different license plates in the trunk, and a jacket that was a perfect match for mine. He didn't even try to fight. He confessed. He gloated, laying out his whole plan, proud of how close he'd come to pulling it off, to achieving his decade-long revenge. I was officially completely exonerated. All charges were dropped. The nightmare was over. But there was one final, chilling postscript. A week later, Detective Lopez called me. "I wanted to tell you one last thing," he said. "Something Wilson said in his confession. We kept asking him why. Why you? Why, after 10 years, he said the statute of limitations on his bitterness never ran out." Lopez paused. "He didn't just pick you because you looked like him, Matthew, or even just because you got that promotion. He found you through old company files. He learned you had just won the prestigious Ainsley Pavilion project, the biggest commission of your career. He had competed for that same project through a smaller firm. He lost. And you won again. That's what pushed him over the edge. It wasn't just about a 10-year-old grudge. It was about him believing that every single time he reached for something, your shadow was there, taking it from him." I hung up the phone, the silence of my home office pressing in on me. I looked at the blueprints for the Ainsley Pavilion spread across my desk, the culmination of my life's work. It was supposed to be my greatest triumph, but now it would forever be linked to the darkest moment of my life. I was innocent, but I wasn't unscathed. The experience taught me that justice isn't a fortress with a solid foundation. It's a delicate structure, built on perception and interpretation, and it can be demolished in an instant by a single motivated person who knows exactly where to place the charges. My face, my car, my life, they were all weaponized against me. I had looked into the eyes of a system ready to condemn me, and I saw my own reflection. The question is, if it happened to me, a man with a normal life on a normal Tuesday, how many other ghosts are out there waiting to steal a face? And would you be able to prove you are you before it's too late?